how to do it, but we are expert in failure. I will say that. We don't know exactly how to do it, but we have made many mistakes in the past. So that is the real expertise I bring to this panel, is that we have tried many things and we've seen the Lord's faithfulness, but we've also seen it come at a cost.
Great. Thank you so much, Davis, and you are welcome. Please, Habakkuk, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself in a minute.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and praise the Lord. My name is Habakkuk Abaho, and I'm a staff with Life Ministry Uganda. I've been involved with Life Ministry for about, let me not say the exact years, but since 2019 as a student on campus. And I bless the name of the Lord that He has shaped me into the kind of person that I am today. And at Life Ministry, we do a number of things, but I'll briefly share a big picture of who we are and basically what we do. So Life Ministry Uganda is a non-denominational but yet interdenominational Christian organization that does win, build, and send, or what we may call winning, evangelism, then building discipleship, and then sending, basically challenging these people that we have built up to go out into the field and do the work of the mission. And also we have a number of strategies through which we reach different categories of people out there. One is that we have the Global Church Movement. This is the arm of the ministry that basically partners closely with the church. And we have the Jesus Film Project, and this is where we basically use the Jesus Film tools, mainly the Jesus Film, to reach out to people outside there. But also we have the leader strategies, and in leader strategies, we reach out to people out there in the marketplace, what I can call marketplace leaders, because they have influence where they are serving. And also we leverage on digital strategies to do digital ministry. We use digital tools and digital resources to reach people online, even those whom we can't be able to access physically. So we use digital strategies. And our mission as a ministry, like I said earlier on, is to win, build, and send Christ-centered multiplying disciples who launch spiritual movements. Yeah, and I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to participate actively on this panel today. I expect that we will have a good time as we respond to a number of questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome. Yes, Noe.
My name, once again, is Grace Noe. I serve with Global Link Africa. Global Link Africa is an indigenous mission agency. We are only 12 years old, so our experience is that narrow, and maybe our mistakes are not yet very many. But we bless the Lord that He has directed us into this direction. Global Link Africa does 4 main things. We partner with the church to identify indigenous missionaries. How do you identify one from among you whom God has called for frontier mission to engage least reached peoples and unreached peoples? We then provide apprenticeship. We provide equipping for that person. Once the church has the person, we partner with the church to provide training, basic cross-cultural training, because they are going to cross a culture. We point them to theological institutions because they need some basic theological understanding if they are going to engage people with the Word of God. And once they have the training, they need apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is taking you to the field, not as a full-time, but you're now testing. You're saying, I want to be a long-term missionary, so you come sign up for 1 year. We go to Karamoja or go to northern Kenya for 1 year, and then we pray and say, how are you reflecting? Now you have been apprenticed. And then subsequently, we partner with the church to send these missionaries, indigenous missionaries. So we identify, we equip, we link, and help to send. And that's Global Link Africa, and I'm glad to be here today.
Gentlemen, thank you so much through your introductions and just getting to hear what you have been able to do with your different agencies. And I strongly believe that at the center of missions, for missions to be effective, there are 4 pillars that we need to think through. You know, the mobilization, the sending, the receiving, and the supporting of the missionary. And our conversations really are going to be around those four pillars. And this is a question that I want to ask to all of you, and feel free to respond in 2 minutes each. What role does church leadership and lay members of a congregation play in identifying and mobilizing potential missionaries? The entire aspect of identifying and mobilizing. So what's the role of church leadership and the role of the lay member of a congregation? Let's begin with the one who has not made many mistakes.
This may be the first. So the role of church members, the role of church leaders. Now, missionaries are, for starters, regenerate Christians. And regenerate Christians belonging to a local church. And it is in the local church that they are discipled, they are encouraged to serve the Lord. It is in the local church that they begin to serve and their gifts starts being identified. It's in the local church that they feed on the Word of God and their convictions start becoming clear. So what is the role of the leaders in the local church? The role of the leaders is to keep the perspective of God's global mission. Because if they never hear about it, faith comes by hearing, and hearing the word of Christ. So if the hearing has no content to that end, then the Christian will not know. So the responsibility as local leaders of a church is to maintain a global perspective of missions. And then the church members is, once you feel the urge and God is speaking to your heart and challenging you, and you come to the leaders provide avenues for this to happen. We said, identifying, you see a gifting. Once you see a gifting, you provide a forum for them to start to exercise their gifting and start to grow. And that's how you look out for opportunities for theological training, opportunities for cross-cultural training, opportunities for apprenticeship. And then for church leaders to seek to understand this whole enterprise, go for exposure trips. And our sister says, come to the mission front. Go and visit down in Kisenyi and look at the Somalis and see how can these people be reached. Make a trip to Karamoja, make a trip to Yumbe as leaders, so that as you begin to engage and pray about, you actually have information to work with.
Well, thank you so much, Noe. Davis, what's your thought and what's your take on the role of church leadership and the lay member of the congregation?
Yeah, I'll try to disagree as much as possible to make things interesting. No, I think, good points from Grace. I think we really need to focus on children. I think there's a lot of pressure on church leaders. We talk about, how much are you preaching about it? Where's your budget going? But a lot of this needs to start really young. It needs to start with students, with 5-year-olds who start knowing that my calling in giving my life to Christ may lead me to go somewhere else. We talk about vacation Bible schools in the U.S. as something that mobilized a generation of missionaries. That was actually my parents' generation. They were mobilized by vacation Bible schools that taught kids, that, your calling to Christ is also a calling to mission. Now, what's interesting now is that instead what we have is we have the leftover missionary. You failed at being an engineer, you failed at being a doctor, at least you love Jesus, maybe you can go be a missionary. Right? Whereas when you have a young person, an 8-year-old, who says, I'm passionate about missions, what does the church do with that? And if you don't have any young people, no one under the age of 12 who is interested in missions, your problem has already started. You have to start with that. What does Christ call of his disciples? He calls them to go out. So that needs to start at the earliest age.
Thank you so much. Habakkuk, working with university ministry, what's your take on the role of church leaders and the lay member in a congregation?
Yeah, thank you. I believe that the church really has a big role to play in relation to building the church for mission, but also the laymen, like the question is prompting us to share. And I'll briefly share about the major role which I think that the church should play. One is giving vision. It could be to the congregation or even cutting across to the young generation of the church, the youth, at that young age, even as they give sermons to the church, or even in these youth organizations, things that they prepare for the youth. It could be a mission, a youth mission. So the vision can be cast well to the church so that people can be able to pick the role of mission. And in that, basically, it may entail explaining to the church or to the congregation what is mission, what is the role of mission. And as we go for mission, what do we intend to get, or what is the main goal of why we should have mission? At starting really with the young generation, like Mr. Davis said, I believe the church has that, and it should be able to pray it well so that the church can know their place in mission. And also I believe the church should be able to assess their congregation and be able to identify what are the spiritual gifts of some individuals so that they can be able to prepare them well, those who can be shaped into that line of mission so that they can be able to meet their needs, so that indeed they can comprehensively prepare them to be missionaries or missioners. And on the side of the lay people in church, I feel the lay people really should play a role of giving encouragement or exhorting the individuals that they realize that these people have gifts. So basically, I would say that for the congregation, because they are the ones who are with the people or the congregants, they can be able to see their fellow congregants because they spend much time with them than the church leaders. So it is easy for them to identify the giftings, and after assessing them, then they can give them a go-ahead. Maybe, say, go to a Bible school so that they can be developed at that way to be missionaries.
Okay, thank you so much. And just doing a flashback when we began this morning, thinking through our theme for this 2024 Engage Missions Conference, building sustainable systems in churches for global missions. One of the things that I'm pretty sure of that is going to come as a response to this conference is that some of us are going back to our local churches to send. And this question goes very directly to Grace Nowen. As we are thinking about sending missionaries, what practical steps should a church take before sending missionaries to the field?
Thank you very much. Practical steps. Number one, within the church, begin to pray. Begin to, within your normal routines of the local church, begin to pray for missions. And prayer is not just shooting words to heaven. Prayer is reflective and is informed. And so, seek to know what is happening in God's world. Who are the unreached across the street? Who are the unreached in Uganda? Who are these people? Some may be just here, some may be very far. Start to get information. Meet as a priority to pray as a church. Secondly, once you have identified an individual among you, there are opportunities for apprenticeship. So Global Link Africa has a program we call Missionary Internship Program. This program specifically targets young professionals, fresh graduates. So we challenge nurses, midwives, doctors, teachers, engineers, upon graduation from university, to sign up for a 1-year cross-cultural experience. During that 1 year, this individual will get both basic theological training and basic cross-cultural training, and you'll be placed in an unreached or least reached people group for 1 year. And that will help to assess your heart. But as this member of your church is being trained, the church is coming alongside, beginning to build its muscle to pray in specific ways for them and their ministry, to visit and see them in action in the community, to the leadership to begin to build structures to support financially and to support in prayer. And then the church is beginning to position itself in terms of its internal policies. So those would be the first steps. Begin to pray, avail the young people. One of the challenges we met, finally, we meet as Global Link Africa. When we go to the universities, the students are very happy to say, wow, I want to go for this. The first challenge they meet is their Christian parent who didn't take them to university to serve on the mission field. So they say, no, somebody is confusing you. Somebody is telling you wrong things. And the next person they take this child is the pastor. The parent brings the child to the pastor for the pastor to put some sense in his mind and remind him that life is more serious than doing those kind of things. And so then it comes back to the church to have a healthy conversation on these issues. And I think the elder made a very good point that we should start at Sunday school, at the children's level. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Norway, for that submission. But Davis, any thoughts into this particular question?
You won't like my answer. Engage your church in love. If you are in this meeting and you're excited for missions and you go back to your church, engage your church in love for missions. And if your church refuses, find a new church. One of the barriers to missions is the church. Okay? I am a receiving mission. What that means is I receive missionaries who are sent by the church. And we have encountered people who are on fire for Christ and they want to serve and they go back to their church and their church is not going to send them. I remember one young lady, she went back to her church. She was on fire to reach Muslims. She went back to her church and her church sent us a document, 21 pages of their doctrinal statement. 3 pages were what they believed, okay? And 18 pages were what they disagreed with, okay? How they disagreed with the Baptists, the Pentecostals, everyone. They disagreed. And we said to her, your calling, if you are going to fulfill this calling, you will need to find a different church. She engaged her church in love, but when her church refused, if she was going to do that, she had to find a missional church.
Well, thank you so much. Habakkuk, before I get back to you, I would love to ask Davis one more question. It's 3 in 1. What are the financial and logistical challenges of sending missionaries? And how can the church effectively address this? Or are there sustainable models for funding missions that we should explore?
You gave me the question that is the hardest question. You should make Habakkuk do it. No, this is the question we all ask, okay? The reality is missions cost money. Okay? And let me tell you something I have seen over and over. Whenever we want to build something in one of our mission programs, like in South Sudan, we say, okay, we want to build this, I don't know, like a fence. So we call the contractor and we say, how much does it cost? We want to fence our property. And they do their calculations and how many bricks and this, and then they give it to us, and we look at the number, and it is so crazy. It is so crazy, that we get so irate and we say, look at this thief trying to steal from us, the missionaries, and these, and we say all of these things about how incredibly crazy this price is. Send that guy away. Find someone else. So you get the next one. The next one, they write the price. And the price is even higher. Okay? These people, get it someone else. And another engineer comes and they write another price. And at this point, you're starting to think, what's the number of that first guy, The reality is that missions cost money. And when people hear the money, the sum the first time, how much it costs, we need to keep repeating to people how much it costs. And you can curse us the first several times, but eventually you will start to realize it costs money. And that is going to be money that's every month. Like, people start to say, well, maybe you could just do this. What if you just eat posho? What if you just, what if your kids you teach them at home? The reality is if you want to have sustained missions, it costs money. And you have to start looking at that as a long-term project. Instead, we look at missions like a short-term project. We look at it like, how much does it cost for you to do this? It doesn't cost to do this. It's something that's gonna take your whole life. So when you plan a building project, okay, I'm hearing from a major denomination in our country, a building project they're planning to do downtown. They have like a 10-year plan. You have to have that approach. So that's one thing. The other thing is you may not be able to afford it on your own. You may have to join. You may have to join with other people. So when I was a youth pastor in my church for 6 years, and when I went to become a missionary and they commissioned me, every month they started sending me a check. And also every month I was sending my tithe to them. And I realized I'm sending them more money than they're sending me. My tithe is actually bigger than the support they were sending to me. Okay? At this point, I have hundreds of people. I have to have hundreds of people. I have to have a team of people behind me that involves 4 churches and 4 denominations. It involves retired people who give money so small that you have sometimes the bank fees exceed the money that they give. Okay? But the reality is that, one, it costs money, and if you can't do it on your own, you have to find partners. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much speaking into that, and I hope that our listeners, we are all learning. Habakkuk, back to you. And the question is, what does holistic support for both short-term and long-term missionaries look like practically?
Wonderful. Holistic is a very big word. But what I can say briefly is that even as missionaries being prepared, they should be prepared holistically so that they can be supported holistically later on. So I'll start with the part of spiritual support. Any missionary out there that is planning to be a missionary, you need people to support you prayerfully, because it is real outside there in the field. If you just go because you have the zeal, you have the enthusiasm to do mission, you will fail. Yeah, so even as we prepare our congregation for mission to be sent out, for them to be sent out, then we need to give them a prayer cover. In life ministry, we do what we call ministry partnership development, or breaking it down, we go out to people and challenge them to be a part of what the Lord is doing through us in the field. So we go and challenge them for only 2 things. And one of the things is that we challenge them for prayer support, because we know it is not easy outside. At least every one of us had a feel of what Kevin shared, what she experiences as she's in the field. And this is not only limited to Kevin, but every missionary who is outside there in the field needs prayer. But secondly, any missionary needs financial support, because we may say, and maybe reflect back to the times when Jesus Christ was doing his ministry, but you realize that even Jesus Christ was supported. He raised support from the people. So even as we send out missionaries, we need to give them that financial backup so that they can be able to effectively do the work of the Great Commission or the work of the ministry in the field, because you realize they will need maybe money for travel, it could be accommodation, and many other things. Materials that they use, they do all need money to be gotten. But also, these people need what I may call logistical support. And in logistical support, basically, to break it down, it involves giving them training. When I was being trained to go out to do ministry, it wasn't easy. The training was tough, because as you're being trained to go out to the field, there are a number of things. It is also a holistic training. So they train you starting with your heart, but also to what you're supposed to give, because you really can't give what you don't have. So these missionaries, before being sent out, they need to be given that training. I heard what Mr. Grace said, that they usually bring their people who are going to go through apprenticeship, and they train them cross-cultural training, because probably you're going to meet a number of people, different cultures, as you're out there in the field. So that is one of the logistical support that everyone who is being trained to be a missionary needs. When I narrow down to what Life Ministry does, we also do a training, what we call the Great Commission training, and we go through a rigorous curriculum that trains somebody to be ready for ministry outside there in the field. Yeah, I hope I can submit that.
Thank you so much. And just getting back to you, Grace Noe, in light of what Habakkuk has actually shared, what are the most common challenges missionaries face on the mission field, and how can supporting churches like Lugogo Baptist Church address some of those issues?
Yeah, building on from what my colleagues have said, there is a flagship statement that goes with ministry in general. People will say ministry is a sacrifice. And I think the biggest challenge, like Davis has said, is we don't quantify the sacrifice. Quantifying the sacrifice is sitting down and planning and putting this on paper to detail and look at what is going to cost you to live as a person, what it is going to cost you to do ministry. There are personal costs, there are ministry costs, there are networking costs, and there's time. Time is a cost. And you plot this into a spreadsheet, and you say, this is what it is going to cost me. So the biggest challenge we have faced as GLA is that we may get people who are passionate and they are ready to go, but they have not sat down to count the cost. And once they are in with both legs, the cost naturally arrives. And they were not prepared psychologically for it. They did not mobilize resources to do it. And so they hurt themselves and they burn out and they come back frustrated. So for both the one going and those who are sending and supporting, we need to have a realistic picture of what is the cost. And then, like Jesus said, take on the project when we know what the cost is, and we have made a commitment towards it. So the commitment has two sides. I am committing to go, and I've outlined my cost of living, my cost of ministry, and I've shared it with partners. And partners have committed, make an equal commitment with me, to make a contribution, a steady contribution for me to live as I serve and for me to actually do ministry. Yeah. So I think the challenge is, from my short experience, is that in our context, we hear sacrifice and we think we are ready, but we don't quantify the sacrifice. And then when it arrives, it is very harsh.
Well, thank you so much for that response. Davis, how are you? There's one more question here for you. How can partnerships, and I think in the last question you responded to, you raised the issue of partnerships, and here there's another partnership and collaboration question. How can partnerships and collaborations enhance church's ability to actively participate in each of the 4 pillars?
Yeah, partnerships, you can't do it, if you can do it on your own, go ahead. If you can do the whole thing on your own, go ahead. If you don't need God, don't even invite him. Just do it on your own. But the reality is that we are made like a body, right? With different skills. And what a mission organization does is it takes a specific part of that ministry. And so even your question to Grace about what does the church do supporting people on the field, the church is very limited in terms of what it can do on the field. Can you go find a house for them? Can you teach them the local language? Can you support them when they get sick with malaria? Can you evacuate them when they have to leave for political instability? No, you don't have those things. But the people that you partner with should have those things. So that's the place where partnership becomes really important. You think about all the things that we do, like planning a wedding, right? You have a photographer, you have people who deal with food, you have people who deal with flowers, you engage all of these people to make the wedding go well, right? So if you have good partnership, what we need, let me just speak for myself for AIM, what we need from you, we need mature, called Christians. That's what we need. We need them to be spiritually mature. We need them to be discipled. We need them to have an understanding of biblical theology, doctrine. We need those things, okay? We need them to be in healthy relationships. If they have some psychological problems, we can't fix that on the field. We need you to work on that beforehand, okay? And then you send them and their money. And we receive them and the money, and we work to equip them on the field. So like right now, I could take 4 Ugandan teachers in South Sudan, okay? I need you to get there. I need you to be spiritually mature. I need you to have biblical training, okay? But when you're there, we have a team for you. You will have Christian community around you. You will have trained team leaders. You'll have people who coach you in how to learn the Lopit language. We have housing for you, okay? We will teach you how to adjust to that culture. If you get sick, we will get you help. We will get you back to Uganda in a moment's notice if you are having a heart attack. Like, that's the place where we focus. So when the church does its job to send an equipped person, and the mission does its job to support them on the field, that's where it comes together and you get effective long-term ministry. Otherwise, you end up sending someone who, as long as their money and as long as their energy and their health and their relationships hold out, they can stay there. So maybe 5 months, maybe 5 years, but eventually they burn out and come home. But if you have someone on the other side who is doing that, then you have an effective partnership because they can sustain. That's how my family is here for 113 years. Because we have people who send and we have people who receive. That's partnership.
Thank you so much. And gentlemen, for the interest of time, I know definitely we would go on and on and on just asking questions in regard to these 4 pillars. And I'm going to give each one of us an opportunity but to give us a parting shot concerning these 4 pillars. what would you say about them as we close this panel interaction? And I will begin with Norway and then end with Davis.
Right. As a parting shot, we are all mobilizers. And the mobilization, the catchment for missionaries is the church. And so we would be happy to come and begin conversations on what would be the baby first steps for your local church. 2, we have a missionary internship program. This is a 1 to 3 years program that allows you as an individual now to sign up, and we apprentice you in an unreached people group or a least people group, using your profession to serve that kind of people, as the training helps you to process and prayerfully see what God is calling you to do long term. We have tools that can help all of us to think global missions. So we have online trainings that you can sign up for. You don't have to be resident at GLA, but we can partner together with other institutions and help you to work through. We have a Global Frontier Missions, GFM course, which is an accredited course that you could do with us for 1 to 2 years. And your understanding of this whole space will be improved. So I look forward to having conversations with you, to visit you at your churches. And if you are a young professional available to serve, we can have a conversation for the MIP program so that we make the initial step from here. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you, Norway. Yes, Habakkuk, your parting shot.
Yeah, as I end, I would love to say that the church, and the good thing, many of us here have a local church. The local church, and maybe we are already leaders in those churches. I think we should really play a big role in helping our church leaders understand that the church has a very big role to play in helping meet all these 4 pillars of mission, because you realize that all missionaries have a church. So to me, I think the church has a very big role that it can play to help build its congregation in line with these 4 pillars so that they can be sent out, because that is the great call that the Lord is asking the church. That is the clarion call that even as Lugogo Baptist Church we are making, that people outside there can be ready for mission. And also, I want to say that everybody, where we are, in different capacities, we are missionaries. We can start there, where we are. So even as we wait to say that we are receiving that permanent call to be permanent missionaries or full-time missionaries, where the Lord will call us. And also, I will make this kalango that at Life Ministry Uganda, we do help that. We do help equip people for mission through what we call the Great Commission training that can help really to holistically prepare someone to be ready to be sent out for mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Habakkuk. And then lastly, Davis.
Yeah, I think the parting shot is that this is already happening. This is not a new thing. So five and a half years ago, I took over as director for Central Region. We had, I think, 6 African missionaries. I have about 100 missionaries across 6 different countries. 5 years ago, we were about 6 African missionaries. Now we're 33. Okay? We are 30%. The Bazungus continue to go home. Okay? But the Africans continue to come and take their places. We are 30% African at this point. Even though we're an old organization that used to be all white, we are not that way anymore. The church is moving in Africa. They're sending missionaries. Okay? The question is if you're going to be involved or not. Besides Opalots being in Africa and on mission, we have a couple called the Nwares from Rwanda. They're in Moroto. Now, why is it that Kinyarwanda, Banyarwanda, are in Moroto serving the Karamojong? Is it because those people in Rwanda have more money, have more heart, have more? No, of course not. But God has called them, and they're in Moroto, okay? But there's no reason that we shouldn't have more Ugandans reaching out to those who are unreached, who are even closer. We're so glad on that team. We've had a couple from Lugogo Baptist. Lawrence and Simple were on that team. Fantastic addition to that team. We've had GLA missionaries on that team. We've had Capro people on that team. So this is already happening. So don't look surprised like I'm going to be, you may be the first in your home, but you're not the first in Africa, right? This thing is happening. This thing is happening. Jump on, right? Get your churches to recognize this is something that is not just an impact in the mission field, it's an impact in our church. I, as a missionary, realize I have a two-way ministry. I have a ministry to the unreached, and I have a ministry to my home church. I need to continue to call my home church to remember the lost. So, welcome. Welcome to the ministry. I'll see you around.
Amen. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and being able to respond to the questions. Thank you, and thank you again. We could